You can get the Gators at 12-1 to win it all. $10 will get you $120. So check it out. That's my endorsement for the day.
There you go. Hey,
Yeah.
that's a great way to start it. And before we
Yeah.
get started, I want to
Well,
thank the great Steve Spurrier for all that he's done for the Florida Gators and continues to do. Obviously, with his restaurant, Spurs Gridiron Grill, the great work that they're doing as well. Once again, this is PodUp with Matthews in the morning, coming to you from the International Diamond Center Studios. Fine jewelry, watches, and much more. Family owned and operated with the largest selection of natural diamond jewelry. So, JC, you talked about odds of winning and what basketball has going on. Obviously, we have the South Carolina Gamecocks coming into town tomorrow evening, but before that, we've got a historic matchup with a group that you're familiar with and the state that you're familiar with the Auburn Tigers and the
and
Alabama Crimson Tide throwing down at Coleman Coliseum on Saturday.
that's a game I didn't expect to see ranked 1 and 2 this time of year. The capital of basketball in college for at least tomorrow might be in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And who would have thought that? But in this game, you've got two teams that just really light it up. They run up and down the court. We saw what Florida did to Auburn. Auburn is a great team, and Florida will likely play them again. In all likelihood, it could happen, maybe in the SEC tournament. But Auburn and Alabama are very similar in that they get a lot of their point. The majority of what Alabama tries to do is either score at the rim or score from the 3-point line. There's not a whole lot of intermediate shots. Now, maybe Auburn's not quite that obvious, but when Alabama plays, if you aren't scoring points and if you don't get in the 80s, there's a good chance you're not going to beat them. And you have to hope they get cold from the 3-point line. But they love to be around the rim and they love to shoot from the outside. And if they're hitting their threes, they're going to do damage. Auburn is very accurate as well shooting. And I think this is going to be a heck of a game on Saturday. They'll have 15,000 fans in that old dump up in Tuscaloosa, and it'll be rocking. So, while you're looking at that game, there's also a league right now that we have in the SEC that basically from 1 to 16 is pretty tough. But there are 4 teams at the bottom that are trying hard to get some wins. South Carolina could really use a win, although I think it's too late for them to get into the tournament. You've got Arkansas likely on the bubble. LSU is a team that's struggling. And Texas is a team that's dropped a couple of games here recently. But everyone else looks pretty good for the tournament, according to Lenardi and some of these guys, Palm and whatnot. So I think the league's looking at 12 teams, maybe 13, to get into the big dance, which is unheard of. It's unheard of.
Yeah. I mean, has this surprised you a little bit, JC? I mean, what do you think? What do you attribute to the ascension of the SEC as a league where it used to be pretty much the ACC and the Big Ten? And now you see this SEC. I mean, is it the transfer portal or is it, I've talked to people that say, well, kids that normally Metro Atlanta, Memphis, areas like that are starting to stay home in the Southeast where they used to go to Duke, Carolina, Virginia, those type of places. Now those players are now staying home, staying in the area, or like in the case of like a Walter Clayton, a Will Richard, almost coming back home, through the transfer portal. What do you attribute to the ascension of the SEC? I mean, as a league, and really just really, I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's almost an explosion of talented basketball teams. I mean, Missouri
That's
just
right.
boat raced. I think I can't remember who it was at home, but I mean, just boat raced them at home the other night. And I mean, just the ability to just these teams. I mean, you saw Missouri come into the O'Connell Center and get a win. Just
Oh, I
the
did.
ability to come in and handle their business on a week to week basis over the last 2 seasons.
Missouri has really improved, and credit to their coach. They beat Oklahoma by 24 points the other night. Arkansas is a team that's played better. I think what I would say, Lauren, is that obvious from the NIL and the transfer portal opportunities that present themselves in each specific case. I think the biggest reason for the insurgence of this league is coaching. I think the fact that you've got these coaches now that can attract these players that are just a cut above. When Calipari can't get it done at Kentucky and gets a job at Arkansas, there's still some appeal to him. And when you've got a guy like Todd Golden or the fella up in Kentucky, and then you've got young guys like that, and then you've got older veteran type coaches like Cal, like the coach of Tennessee, Barnes. You've got in Auburn, you've got Bruce Pearl. You've got in Alabama, Nate Oates. These are coaches that players want to play for. Auburn had a player that left their roster just to go to Alabama's roster simply because of the style of play that Nate Oates brought to the table, and he wasn't getting it done in Bruce Pearl's system. Okay, that's fine, but he didn't leave the conference to go play at Connecticut or Kansas or something like that. He stayed in the SEC because I think the coaching here is as good as it is in any conference. So I attribute that all to coaching. I really
Wow, absolutely. And we've got a YouTube comment that's brought to you live by Quality Plumbing. Quality Plumbing, residential and commercial plumbing services and emergency repair since 1984. Our name says it all. Wolf Gator says, and you can maybe you might know this name, Mike Tranghese, coming in and advising on what teams need to do over the past 10 years to make basketball improved, investment increased, etc. You
okay.
familiar with that?
I think investment is a broad stroke. I mean, that could go from facilities to what they want to pay their coaches in this league. But this league is second to none in the coaching department. And I don't know what Mike Tranghese had to do with that. I can't answer that question. I can just tell you that for some reason, and maybe he is a part of that. I don't know. I doubt it. But what the reality is that these schools have decided to commit to basketball. Danny White at Tennessee is spending money. Rick Barnes is not cheap. You've got Calipari at Arkansas. It's not cheap to keep that guy and to hire him. He's one of the highest earners in the business. And you're going to see guys like Nate Oates continue to get extensions. Bruce Pearl, he'll never leave. His last job will be at Auburn. There's just no question about it in my mind. And then again, the young man up in Missouri that had a horrible season last year, plagued by injuries, attracts players from wherever, and look at their balance. Look at their roster right now. So much better. We learned of a kid named Grill who couldn't miss from the outside when they came down here to Florida. I've never seen him before in my life, but somebody there on that coaching staff found Grill and put him on the roster, and he scored 24 some odd points down here. And Missouri won a game on the road at Florida that it was not supposed to win or wasn't thought of winning, but it was very much supposed to win when you saw him play. So this league is as good as it's ever been. It's going to be validated by the number of teams that go to the big dance. You've got coaches now that people around the country are very familiar with and aware of. And, even Mike White, for all of the boredom and all of the misery that we had to watch his offense and his teams play down here, has got Georgia on the bubble for the NCAA tournament in Athens. So, and then look at Vanderbilt, their new coach. I'm sorry, I just don't have some of these newer coaches' names, but the guy at Vanderbilt has just been tremendous. Vanderbilt's tough to deal with. They're tough. Just ask Texas A&M. Ask some of these teams that had to play them up there. Ask Tennessee, who lost to Vanderbilt up there. And then, of course, we go to Buzz at Texas A&M. Buzz Williams and that team is as good an offensive rebounding team as there is in the conference, and Texas A&M is going to be a very high seed in the big dance, regardless of the SEC tournament, which, by the way, will be unbelievable when you get all these teams together in one city.
Yeah, and Facebook Live coming to you from Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Dan Bond agrees with you, just saying that there's been some great hires across the SEC, head coach wise. And I mean, you really do. I mean, you see just the plethora of great coaches, and it's filtering not only to the men, but the women too. You starting to see, some really good hires in women's basketball as well. Unfortunately, I was fortunately and unfortunately, I had the pleasure to go to I was in Columbia, South Carolina last night. Unfortunately, the South Carolina Gamecocks defeated Kelly Ray Finley's Florida Gators. And Florida put up a fight, but I mean, the level of talent on both sides, both in the women's and the men's, I know we're talking about the men's with the big game this weekend, but just you're starting to see a whole, it used to be the football only, JC, you were part of that ascension,
Mm.
but now, I mean, it's almost in every sport. We're going to get to softball in a minute, and the ability, with
Oh,
that, with that talent, obviously, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's really been, football and baseball traditionally, but now, I mean, it's across the board in almost every sport that you see this talent level. I mean, just exploding. And like we just once again, the basketball, the ability of these guys on a consistent basis as is just immense. I mean, it's unbelievable.
I just hope it can translate to championships, my man. I mean,
Right.
it's great to have loaded rosters, but at the end of the season, you got to look back at it and say, was this a success or not? One of the greatest coaches we've ever had here at the University of Florida just retired in volleyball, Mary Wise, and she had some great teams, and she brought the volleyball program to the level that Florida's expectations began at, basically with volleyball, but she couldn't finish that championship run, and she came close. Doesn't take away from the career she had. It doesn't, but it is something that I'm sure that she thinks about. I mean, how could you not? They came so close so many times. Kevin O'Sullivan, he's done it at Florida. Tim Walton, he's done it at Florida in terms of winning championships. And I can go on and on and on about how great the team is and this and that. And the coaches will say the same thing. It doesn't matter unless there's something we can pin our season to at the end, because everybody's good, QB. I mean, Loren, everybody is good. They've all got players. They've all got scholarship athletes. They've all got superstars. They've all got this best player in that place or that best player over there. And they put them on these rosters. And then if they perform, it all comes out. But if they disappoint or don't perform or whatever the problem may be, it leads to disappointment. And we all root for the teams we want to win. JLB says, hello. Hey, hello, JLB. This is on YouTube. We've got no, I don't drive the Mitsubishi Eclipse anymore. Pat, that car it would have been 40 years old by now. I'm sorry, I don't drive that. The big question is, did I find a dog sitter from Franklin Hall? My mom did it at 82 years old. She's going to take Toto. Thank you for asking, Franklin. It's been a big source of my stress this week, and I know that nobody wants to hear it, but I can't resist complaining about it. And it's just time to go to Mississippi and mourn the death of someone and celebrate his life. You can do that 2 ways. So it's kind of like you're mourning the death of somebody and then you're celebrating his life. So these are things that take a lot of thought, and you just kind of roll with it, if you will. And so that's what we're going to do. And it's kind of like going through a losing streak, hoping that it ends up with a winning streak. And you just kind of roll with it there, Loren. I'm sorry to ramble.
No, you're fine. I think
these are some of the things I've got to answer here on this.
Right. No, I think that, I mean, you think about it, you talk about everything you got going on. I know our listeners appreciate that, but I think
they may not care.
The beauty we have this thing called sports to take our mind off of things. And that's the beauty of it. My condolences as well.
This great Kyle Morris was quarterback in the late 80s before Spurrier came. Spurrier came, he was a senior, and that's when Shane Matthews ascended to the top. But he was a quarterback for Florida and never had the Harrison Houstons or the
Jack Jacksons
and guys like this. But he had Stacy Simmons. I think he had Ernie Mills. I don't know. He had some guys, but their offense was nothing compared to what the coach brought to us there in the 90s, and we all saw the results. But it'll be sad to say goodbye. But he did get to make it to the Mississippi game, the Ole Miss game in Gainesville. Billy Napier's probably best moment during the year, in my opinion, was the Mississippi game when they beat Lane Kiffin, a heavily favored Ole Miss team with this massive roster that we all just drooled over and thought was the best playoff type teams, this, that, and the other. And the Florida Fighting Gators beat Mississippi, beat them down. And Kyle got to see that in the stadium. I had to pick him up out of that sofa and roll his ass over to the football stadium. He got in the golf cart from the parking lot, went to the O'Connell Center, got in the elevator, went up. They helped him into the club, and he saw a great game with his two sons, one of whom was to Ole Miss, the other of whom plays football at a private school up in Jackson. So we're really happy that he got that opportunity to show the kids at the University of Florida where he played football, this, that, and the other. and we got to go see Coach at the restaurant where they serve great food. We got to do all of these things for Kyle before he passed. And I know he's looking down saying, JC, you could have this, you could have that. And I tell you, that's the guy he was. He was a wonderful person, and he really appreciated things. And sometimes he just had an interesting way of showing it. But I knew how much he loved being here, and he loved the Florida Gators. This guy loved the Florida Gators, and he played for the Florida Gators. He didn't end his career with the Florida Gators, but he did play, and we'll miss him dearly. And I love that man, and I can't wait to see all the other guys that will be associating up there on Saturday.
Yeah, well, condolences to the Morris family and the Florida Gator family as well. Anytime you lose a member of the family, and obviously the Florida football program is a close-knit bunch, you're familiar with quite a few of them. So, definitely condolences to you, JC, as well as the rest of the Florida Gator and the Morris family. Comfort Temp Heating and Air is your #1 local HVAC company. Professional and experienced technicians keep you informed throughout the entire project. Visit us at comforttemp.com. Comfort Temp Heating and Air. Comfort is our business. Peace of mind is our promise. And we'll kind of stay with the theme Gators. I'll let you get yourself together a little bit, JC. But
all good.
Speaking of football, Billy Napier, it's kind of funny. He had a great finish to the season. You kind of chronicled that with Shane here live on the show. Some big wins, the big win against LSU, big win against Ole Miss, finishing off Tulane in the Gasparilla Bowl. But now starting to see some not necessarily chinks in the armor. I think that'd be a little bit unfair, but Will Harris.
What's the story with Will Harris?
Yeah, well, that's what Will Harris seems to the reports are that Will Harris will be leaving Florida and going to the University of Miami, of all places. Florida will see, I think, week 4 of this season. And Will Harris did a decent job with that secondary. I think we saw some improvement from what we had seen the previous years under Corey Raymond. I'm not sure, not to, I don't like to really get into what coaches did or didn't do. I just know Will Harris seemed to get a little bit more out of that group this past season, and it showed from a defensive standpoint. But now kind of, a surprise is workouts are starting and you start to move into spring ball, that Will Harris would not only leave Florida, but leave for a team that they have on the schedule this year. So, I mean, from the outside looking in, JC, I've heard, and we'll get to that a little bit. I don't want to get into a lot of rumors and innuendo, but kind of surprising that Will Harris, he seemed to be somebody that was entrenched in that staff and really doing a nice job. And to hear that announcement, did that heighten? Did that kind of, get you going a little bit? Or?
No, it didn't, as much as it apparently has gotten Wolf Gator going here on YouTube. The Will Harris loss is not good at all. Another top recruiter on the defensive side leaving because of Ron Roberts. Ron Roberts is terrible to work with. Okay, Napier pressure just ramped up again. I don't know about what Ron Roberts is like to work with, but Billy Napier is the CEO, and this is something I'm sure they could have worked out. But maybe he just got a better offer down there with Mario. I don't like it. I mean, if he's going to leave, go to Kansas State, but he's going to Miami, and there's obviously reasons for it. Listen, these kids are going to be coached by somebody. And I'm sure, and I have confidence that Coach Napier will find another Will Harris out there somewhere, if there is such a person. Now, I can't really sit around the house worried about whether or not an assistant coach finds greener pastures down in South Florida. If you ask me, the Miami Hurricanes at the end of the year were disappointed with how their year ended. The Florida Gators, in spite of what happened in August of last year, were very happy with the way their season ended. And then Florida State's not even mentionable. They should be kicked out of the ACC for malpractice. So I think that when you look at those 3 schools, and those are the only schools I look at in Florida. I'm sorry, UCF, USF, not concerned. When you look at those other 3, at those 3 schools, which fan base is happiest right now? I got to say, and I'm not saying throwing Mardi Gras parties right now, but I think the fan base that has the most comfort at this point, in spite of what just happened here, is the Florida fan base, only because of how the season ended last year and who we have. This is my saving thing. Who we have coming back to play quarterback.
Right.
And that is what matters to me. If it's all about Lagway. Now, I know the defense has got to do this and everybody's got to do their jobs. Great. Without DJ Lagway, Florida doesn't win those 8 games last year. And with DJ Lagway, who knows? They may have won more than 8 games last year. I don't know that. I know the beginning of the season sucked. And then, of course, the great Graham Mertz goes down and we start new. And who knows what would have happened in that Georgia game if he had been able to stay in it. Who knows? Those guys were tied with the Georgia stinking Bulldogs in the fourth quarter with a guy that has no business playing quarterback in this league. And somehow they were tied with the Georgia stinking Bulldogs. So I want to be optimistic about it, Loren. I don't want to dwell about Will Harris and what his career goals are and what his life is about. I want to dwell on whether or not Billy Napier can fill that void, and I believe he can. And I'm not trying to get too deep into the woods here about it.
Right.
You know,
now, I do want to get to one thing. I mean, I want to get to Barone 71. He says brought on the YouTube question line brought to you by Quality Plumbing. He says that time to start putting stipulations in these coaches' contracts that they face large buyouts if they go to any schools on the UF schedule for at least 3 years. I mean, I think that's a little complex. That you get, like you said, you're getting into the weeds there. But here's what I do want to say, and I could maybe eat my words later, but I think it's unfair to both Billy Napier, Ron Roberts, and even some way Will Harris to assume that Billy Napier, who seems to be pretty buttoned up in my opinion, JC, for whatever reason, would allow that type of staff strife to exist, throughout the facility like that. I mean, some of the things that I've seen and heard, I mean, it's almost like then, it would almost be that Billy Napier, who I think totally understands what's going on in his organization, would allow those kind of things to fester to the point where that would be a reason. It's almost too simple in that respect. And I'm talking just from a coaching standpoint. I think a lot of times it's very easy to say, well, so and so left because so and so ate his graham crackers and it didn't give him any.
Yeah.
That we're dealing with grown men. I think if we operated in our jobs that way, in coaching and sports, sometimes people want to take A plus B equals C, and well, that's the answer. And I don't think that, I think that's we got to be fair to Billy Napier in that regard, I would say.
Yeah, he's the CEO. He's in charge. And I would say that if Will Harris knocked on his door and said, hey, man, I'm scooting down south. I got to go to Miami. These are the reasons. Good luck. Then, what's Billy going to do about it? And these contracts, I don't know anything about that part. That's the Scott Strickland issue. That's Coach Napier. Those things could be part of some of this. I just think that people are going to eventually do what they want to do. And coaches always seem to have a lot of latitude in terms of where it is they want to coach, regardless of contracts, it feels like. It just does. It just feels like these guys can pick up their bags and get on the train out of town whenever the hell they want. And now the players are able to do that. What's good for the coaches seems to be good for the players in terms of income and in terms of where they live. It just seems that's the way football has gone. That's the process we're in now. So hopefully, folks, don't lose too much sleep over this. I would highly recommend that. Here we are in the month of February. And again, if you want to pick the 3 fan bases that matter in this state, which one would you rather be? And I think the answer is Florida.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Silverback Concrete builds firm foundations for generations. You stand on it, we stand by it. And JC, we talked about just a big weekend in sports as a whole. Got the Daytona 5. I mean, you got a lot of things going on, but actually here on campus, we also have 2 other sports starting. We got softball that has already started their season, had a great weekend last weekend down in Tampa, seems to be rolling along. And in your sport, a sport that you're familiar with, the Gators welcome in the Air Force Falcons.
Yeah, that's right.
To Condren Ballpark. But have you been able to check out what softball is doing? A lot of people think
Not
that this could be, yeah, I mean, they've got a freshman I think is on pace to hit. Dan Bond is one of our listeners. He stays on top of softball. I mean, she's on pace to hit close to 50 home runs. I think she homered again last night. Tim Walton says that she could be the best hitter that he's had in his program since Amanda Lorenz. And
Yeah.
then I know Shane had Kevin O'Sullivan on a couple weeks or last week, and I think he's pretty impressed with his team as well. But I
Right.
mean, going into this spring with those two programs, just speak
Woo.
to the job that,
Well,
and obviously O'Sullivan, you'll know a little bit more than
oh man.
than most about the job that Kevin's been able to do.
I've always been a massive supporter of Kevin O'Sullivan. I think the way he handles pitching, specifically the way he works his rotation, the way he enables these guys on pitch counts to get the required rest and the things that they need to be effective at the end of the year, the way he manages that rotation, the way he manages his staff is as good as there is in college football. You got to remember these guys, they can't flame out too soon. This is a long 5-month season, and it only matters at the end, really. I mean, all of it matters. But you can lose a midweek game against the JU Dolphins and then go down to, you could go to Baton Rouge and sweep the LSU Tigers, and all's well. And then come back and be in a 20-15 slugfest with Bethune-Cookman or FA or FAMU or play Florida State. They dominate Florida State last year, if I'm not mistaken. I think
No doubt.
I'm accurate there. So they also had some slip-ups during the week, but everybody got all up in arms about. But it was all about how you finish. And the way he's managed his pitching is great. And I think Tim, with the softball team, there's so many great players that's come through this system. His record is ridiculously, absurdly, outrageously impressive. The percentages of his winning percentages is good as you'll ever find in this profession in any sport. And that includes the UConn basketball coach. That includes the South Carolina women's basketball coach. All of these things that we look at and say, man, this guy's a master at his craft. We have that in Tim Walton at the University of Florida, and his family is wonderful. They're diehard Gators. I know them well. And I think this program, we've said it, the only way you can be considered a champion is if you win a championship. Well, Oklahoma is a dynasty. That's the bogey for me. They're going to eventually bump into the Oklahoma Sooners at some point.
Yeah, later this season.
And look, everybody's good. Everybody is good. Okay, I get it. Coach is like, hey, dude, you forgot about Alabama. You forgot about Tennessee. You forgot about Florida State. You forgot about all these good other. That's fine. But the gold standard is Oklahoma. And at some point, Florida's going to have to run into that, and then we'll see. And it's about pitching. To me, I know we got girls that can hit the ball a mile. I'm all for offense. I love offense. But I think the winning formula is how you pitch when you get to OKC. That's it.
Well, absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, the Gators were probably a pitcher away last year. I mean, if you look, they ended Oklahoma's streak there at the College World Series. Keegan Rothrock pitched her heart out. Really, I mean, pitched to the point where, I mean, and if for lack of a better term, that's it. Her arm fell off, and so they've got I think they've got Red Oxley, who's a freshman from Bartow, Florida. Ava Brown struggled last night, but has pitched pretty well this season. So I think when you look at where this team are going, you hit on it, JC, is the pitching. They're going to be able to hit the ball. I mean, that lineup is Mia Williams has been hitting the ball. I mean, she's leading the team in batting average, and she's hitting in the 7th spot. I mean, it just so there you go. But I think like you said, the pitching is going to be that, if they can find that second pitcher to carry them, particularly in a situation like last year where they had to fight their way out of the losers bracket back into the championship bracket, so to speak. If they can get that, I think Rothrock's solid. If they can get solid innings from one of the, Kara, I can't remember pronounce her last name. The UNC Wilmington is a strikeout pitcher, but struggles with control. But they have to find that second pitcher, and then they're on their way. And then you talk about the job that Kevin O'Sullivan does. David Kopp, who played for Sully at Clemson, helps him with the pitchers. I mean, they do a great job getting those staffs together. And it's one of those things where it's almost a foregone conclusion that Oklahoma City has the Gators. And then Omaha has. I mean, it's almost like you look in those two cities in late May, and here come the Gators. I mean,
here they come.
And I think that O'Sullivan has another opportunity to be there as well.
Absolutely, and that will be the grade at the end of the year. And I listen, I just love the fact that each and every year, both these programs are always in the running for it. And there will be a time, it really just comes down to, it really does. The last 2-3 weeks of the year, whoever's playing the best in the last month of the season seems to be the team that, has that momentum to win it. It's been Oklahoma in softball, but in baseball, it can be anybody. You can win any game with Paul Skeens throwing the ball if you're an LSU type team. You can win anything. You can beat anybody, but he's only one guy. But, when Vanderbilt was winning championships, they had a couple of guys, Leiter and a couple of really great pitchers that were just unhittable. And so that's what I look for with these guys at the end of the year is okay, time of hitting means everything. Guys like Kaggs was great, but the pitching to me in both sports is what gets you the ring. That's just what I've always believed in. I played baseball most of my life athletically, and I think pitching is the answer to all your troubles. I'm a pitching guy. Like good pitching. The Big Red Machine. When the Yankees were dominating everybody in the 90s, we knew about Jeter and all those guys, Paul O'Neill. But how about Andy Pettitte? How about some of the guys that were throwing Rivera out of the pen? Unbeatable. And that's where you win your championships, as far as I'm concerned. You got to score. You got to score. You got to have guys that score and hit the ball. Absolutely. But pitching is the solution to everything for me.
All right.
So let's see if it happens, Loren. I hope it does. And I really have enjoyed having time with you.
Oh, yeah. Well, like I said, it's a long way to go. A lot of softball, a lot of baseball, still a lot of basketball to be played. But, yeah, no, really appreciate you.
Yeah,
I know you got to go and head out. But once again, my condolences to you, the Morris family, all of us that love Gator football and those things. But give me before I let you go, just give me a prediction. Obviously, I know you got the Gators that take care of business at home tomorrow night. But who you like in this Alabama-Auburn matchup?
Well, I'm going to go with the home team, but that doesn't mean they're going to win. I mean, Ole Miss beat Alabama on their own court. Florida beat Auburn on their own court. That's just how good this league is. But I think Alabama, if they hit threes, is unbeatable. And I think at home they'll be comfortable there. I got them winning the game probably by 2 or 3 points maybe. It's going to be very close. These are the two best teams, I think, in the league at this point. Doesn't mean they're going to win anything, but I think at this point right now, February the 14th, happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Alabama and Auburn are your two best teams. Florida is right there. And I think Florida can play with anybody. You get the Gators cooking from the outside and those two big towers underneath, they can beat anybody. Right now, they're a 1 or a 2 seed. It doesn't matter right now, but that's where they are right now. And I hope that we continue to see these guys stay healthy. We need to get Martin back. Florida has to. And, hey, great,
To my Condon, great news.
No, I'm drawing a blank. Denzel.
Oh yeah. That's helped Denzel develop. Is that the fact that Martin's been kind of down? Absolutely.
Denzel did a great job coming in and spelling Eli Martin, but Martin is a player they've got to have, I think, to go deep. I really do. But Todd Golden has just done a magnificent job. This is a team you can really get excited about. Even, if you've got plans on a Saturday and they're playing on the road, you make plans to watch that team because that is a good group to watch, and I think they can beat anybody. I really do.
All right. Well, thanks, JC.
Yeah,
like
buddy.
I said, safe travels.
Thank you, Lauren.
And have a good weekend. Tell
you.
all those guys hello and go Gators. And once again, man, honor your friend and have a good weekend.
Yeah, he was a good Gator. And listen, I appreciate you stepping in on short notice today, Lauren. Hopefully we see you again soon.
Absolutely. Been a pleasure.
All right, buddy.
All right. Thanks a lot, JC.
All right, man.
Our premium sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union,
International Diamond Center,
Meldon Law, QC Kinetics, Dave & Buster's, UF Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute, JF Hayden Craft Liqueurs, Florida Cracker Kitchen, Los Linderos Tequila. Gridiron sponsors are Baker Sporting Goods, Cogent Bank, Comfort Temp, Electronics World, Florida Victorious, Gallo Car Wash, Miapa Latin Cafe, Peachland Dental, Quality Plumbing, Ruse Ogre State Farm, Silverback Concrete, 84 Lumber, Big Mills Cheesesteak, Celebrate Primary Care, Dowling Signs, Gator Bait Media, Gator Dominoes, Ironwood Golf Course, Okido America, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, UF Bookstores, Nest and Wow, MG and A Wealth Management, Watch and listen to us live on Facebook and YouTube. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. To become a sponsor, call my man Freddie at 352-284-3733.
Hi there, this is Coach Steve Spurrier, and I want to let you know that by popular demand, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill's delicious brunch is now served in a premium buffet. You have spoken, we have listened, and we're now serving Gainesville's only elevated buffet, complete with an omelet station, ginger sage chicken sausage, shredded short rib, and of course our chicken and waffles. Plus, you can enjoy bottomless, mimosas, and Bloody Marys. So join us every Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3 for the best brunch in town.
What's up, everyone? I'm Mike Pouncey, and this is my twin brother, Marquise Pouncey, and this is Life After Football.
Let's go. We are the owners of Tropical Distillery, and JF Hayden's is our liqueur brand.
We have 5 different flavors: a mango, a lychee, an espresso, citrus, and key lime pie. We pride ourselves on not only being a Florida-made brand, but also a cocktail solution. With that being said, cheers,
And go Gators.
The most important thing I learned from my father was work ethic and integrity. Never veer away from integrity, even if it costs you money.
International Diamond Center owner Keith LeClaire.
The core value for IDC is to protect the customer.
That means offering the largest selection, uncompromising quality, the strongest warranties, and honest guidance from experts who are not paid on commission. International Diamond Center at Celebration Point. Online, shopidc.com.
Once again, welcome to PodUp with Matthews in the morning. I'm your host, Loren Meadows. We'll be joined shortly by Nick Delator of Florida Victorious. But in the meantime, we'll take a few of your comments on both the YouTube hotline as well as Facebook Live. Brought to you by Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law firm partner of the Florida Gators. YouTube questions are brought to you by Quality Plumbing, residential and commercial plumbing services and emergency repair since 1984. Our name says it all. Thanks a lot, Wolf Gator. I appreciate that. We're looking at some of the questions here. Say Barone 71 said Foley didn't hire Spurrier, and Urban Meyer signed on because of his relationship with UF president. I think that's Bernie Matchern as well. People talking about different coaching hires and things like that within the program. I think, as we look at Florida as a whole, I think there's been some great hires by UF. Mary Wise retiring now opens up the volleyball position as well. I think the thing that we want to keep in mind is Florida is such a place that is so attractive in almost every sport. No matter who you hire and where those things go, there's always going to be an attractive job. I mean, it's going to be a place that people are going to want to be, and you're always going to have the opportunity to get quality coaches, for sure. And, Wolf Gator will definitely see what Nick Delator knows about the departure of Will Harris and what he could shed light on for sure. Electronics World, integration and design specialist for smart home automation and entertainment, affordable local installation, service and support, electronicsworld.net. See them for all. And yeah, definitely want to get into, the coaching changes. Obviously, Vinny Sinceri was added to the staff. There's talk that may be an issue that Will Harris wanted to coach the entire secondary, but I assume that he's going to be coaching. I've heard that he's going to be coaching safeties at Miami, so I'm not sure he'll have the whole secondary at Miami as well. These guys know each other. I've been in coaching, coached at the high school level, coached a little bit of college. All of these, I mean, they all work together. Everybody knows one another. So, I find it hard that a staff hire, I mean, especially when it has the ability to make you a better football team, that they would, lend themselves to, I'm not going to say having a tantrum, but leaving because you hire. I mean, the more eyes you can get on kids, I think that is a good thing. So I'm not particularly sure what happened there. And it could just be a situation where Will Harris wanted to move a little further south and live close to Coral Gables. So, I definitely would, just temper that, and I'm sure Nick will be able to give us some insight as soon as he joins us shortly, for sure. I mean, John, brought to you on the YouTube live question line, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, says, "Let's go out and get someone like Ahmad Black to coach." I'm not sure what Ahmad's doing right now, but obviously, anytime you could bring some Florida greats home, have them around the program. Ahmad is very respected, former Lakeland Dreadnought, and somebody that's been in the area, been around. I know he used to live in Gainesville, and obviously anytime you can bring somebody around would be a question. Andy McIntosh on the Facebook Live question line, brought to you by Meldon Law, ask, why isn't Shaq's daughter getting more playing time for the Lady Gators? She's continuing to grow in the game, to develop. Just really had to learn the lingo. I mean, it can be complex at the college level, but she played a really good game last night. Probably one of her better games last night. Shot the ball well, was in the mix defensively, and she's got a bright future at Florida. Has a great relationship with the coaching staff, and is really a great young lady. I mean, really does a nice job. Is very approachable for somebody who most people may deem grew up with a silver spoon, so to speak. Is very down to earth, very approachable, and really likes the game of basketball. So I think as the season progresses, as it comes down the home stretch, and then going into next year, obviously that core group with her, Liv McGill, and Layla Reynolds will be counted on next year to kind of help the program continue on. So that's a great question by Andy, brought to you by the people at Meldon Law. So just continue to develop as well. So just going from there. Barone 71 says, I would like Ahmad Black or Keywan Ratliff as DB coach. Yeah, I mean, definitely Ratliff, somebody that's been around the program, was part of the Florida program, obviously one of the better defensive backs, a fellow Ohioan. So I'm a little partial to Keywan, but definitely, I mean, once again, anytime you can have people that were part of the program, particularly in what you might deem the glory days, as Billy Napier continues to grow the program, anytime you have those people around, it's definitely going to help your program. Miapa Latin Cafe. Miapa Latin Cafe. Discover the ultimate Cuban culinary experience at Miapa Latin Cafe. With 5 locations in Gainesville, Alachua, you're never far from the best Cuban food of North Miami. Speaking of food, Florida Cracker Kitchen is the brand for original Floridians. Great food and Southern hospitality in the center of the universe. Brooksville, Florida, FloridaCracker.com. And as we mentioned before, we're waiting on Nick Delator to join us from Florida Victorious. Nick is dealing with an infant right now, so hopefully we'll be able to get him on soon. But continue with your questions on both Facebook Live as well as the YouTube question line, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. Once again, the Gators will welcome in South Carolina for a basketball tilt tomorrow night. It should be a great game. Hopefully the Gators will be able to get Elijah Martin back, and then Alex Condon will be joining. Will be probably still out for a couple more games, but X-rays were negative based on what we heard from the Florida Gators, and should be maybe week to week, but should join the Gators in time for the SEC tournament, and most importantly, the NCAA tournament. With that, we're joined by Nick Delator of Florida Victorious. And how you doing, Nick? Had a rough morning, huh, with the youngster?
Some parents talk of this thing called bedtime. We've yet to negotiate terms that my 5-month-old daughter agrees with. So it was a late night, long night, and then this morning, we're in negotiations to regain our household.
Right.
5-year-old is a shrewd negotiator. 5-month True negotiator.
So Nick, let's get to it, man. I know you recently joined Florida Victorious. You had done work with On3 and other platforms. Obviously, people know your work with baseball. You do a great job, but obviously all sports in between. But just give us a little bit of what you're doing now with Florida Victorious and how it fits with this entire mission of the NIL, the collective, and so forth, and just enlighten us a little bit on what you're doing with Florida Victorious.
Yeah, I think, the for years we've kind of had to tell people, especially Florida fans who you go back to the early 80s and they got put on probation and hey, we don't pay players, we're not going to get in trouble. And all of a sudden you can pay players now and you have to tell people like, no, it's not illegal, we're not going to get in trouble. And not only that, we have to be competitive in this space or else we're not going to win games. So when the opportunity came to work with Florida Victorious, I kind of jumped at it because I felt like there was a chance to tell stories of the athletes. And one of the first stories I wrote was about Derek Wingo. And because of Florida Victorious and because of NIL, he was able to move his parents. His mom lost her business during COVID because of the shutdowns and was able to move his mom and his dad. His dad has some health issues, move them to Gainesville. His mom had never missed a football game in high school, and she lived on the west coast of Florida, and he went to St. Thomas Aquinas, so that meant driving across the state every Friday. And then through NIL, Derek was able to pay for a car, hotel, and all of these travel accommodations for every single game. She went to more than 60 college football games as Derek, was here for 5 years. And all of that, he was able to do it because of NIL. And I think those are stories that people need to hear if they're thinking these guys are blowing it on money and jewelry and, taking all their money and buying new cars. And there's some good stories. And we have some incredible people. Obviously, we all know that we have incredible athletes here at Florida, but we have some incredible people and some incredible stories. And I think in my position, I'll be able to do that. And as NIL keeps changing, I told Florida Victorious I want to give the fan something. We weren't really doing content before, and if you were a Florida Victorious member who lived in San Francisco, you weren't getting anything from us. After you sent your money in every single month. And now I think with the access we have to the players and to the coaches and to the programs, I think I'll be able to tell some really cool stories. And then, of course, I know what everyone wants. Spring football right around the corner. I'm not getting kicked out when the rest of the media is kicked out. I'll be there for scrimmages and stuff like that. I've been behind the scenes with a lot of the lifting and stuff. So it'll be cool. It'll be a lot of we'll get some good inside information on our message boards but stick around for like the longer stories to learn about these people, please.
Yeah, and Dan Bond on the Facebook Live question line, brought to you by Meldon Law, says congratulations on the baby, Nick. So everybody's pulling for you as you move through this thing we call fatherhood. UF Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. Injuries occur whenever and however, and it's never convenient. For sprains, strains, and minor fractures, UF Health Ortho Care makes it convenient for you 7 days a week, including evenings. Walk-ins are welcome. So speaking of injuries, and we'll talk about a couple things here quickly. What are you hearing about the return of Elijah Martin to the lineup as well as Alex Condon for the third-ranked Gators, particularly moving into a what could be a trap game Saturday night? Those late games, sometime late in the season, can be tough. But what are you hearing about those two guys and their return?
Yeah, I think we'll start with Condon just because I think it's probably fortunate that it's not a high ankle sprain. They feel like it's a low ankle sprain, but ankles are different when you're 7 feet tall than you and I, Lauren.
Right.
So I think you want to get him back, of course. If you look at the standings, there's a bunch of teams like bunched up at that 2-loss. People were asking me like, "Hey, where do you think Florida will be seated in Nashville?" And I'm like, "There's 7 games left. I think we have 7 games left, so
Yes.
you could win 7 in a row and be a top 1 or 4 seed, and you could lose 7 in a row, and be playing in the opening round. So it's you obviously want to seed well, and you want to play You want to have that double bye. You want to earn as high of a March seed, but you also want Alex Condon to be healthy. So I think you'll give him a week, maybe even 2 weeks to kind of feel good. You don't want him to rush back and re-injure his ankle or make it worse and hurt you long term. Elijah Martin, I think it's kind of that same thing. They've been abundantly cautious with getting him back, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him play Saturday. I think the thought was that he was going to play Tuesday, and then kind of a late scratch. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him play Saturday. But also, if he doesn't, I think you need to get him back in Tuesday, and you kind of tell him like, hey, we've taken our time now. Now we're 3 games in. We've taken our time. I think it's time to either get ready to play or we need to go and get like a second opinion.
Right. Yeah. And I think, the one saving grace is you started to see really the emergence of Denzel Aberdeen, as I call him, the fourth guard in that 3-guard lineup, really almost as a pseudo starter in a lot of ways. And his development, I mean, his last 2 weeks have been unbelievable. And then really Condon's injury has allowed Thomas Houck to now become a guy that's in the mix for 6th man of the year in the SEC. I mean, he's playing that well. So the one saving grace is that I think that they've been able to maybe expand the lineup a little bit. Klobuchar started to get a little bit more minutes, and we see the shooting is as good as advertised, so to speak. So, definitely, I think that the Ty Golden and staff have done a great job of managing that and almost having it pay dividends in a big way for sure,
Yeah. I mean, Florida really was, everyone does it, but as the season gets into SC play, you really shrink your lineup. And Urban as the 6th guard, 5th guard, really wasn't getting any minutes until Elijah goes down and he hits some big threes. He's a kid who everyone I talked to is like, he doesn't miss. I think you could ask him to try to miss in practice, and he just doesn't know how to. So he's been good when he comes off the bench, but I think the guys you mentioned, Thomas Haug, it's funny, I was doing an interview with Walter Clayton, and he said Thomas Hawk. And I said, that what? He goes, oh, I called him Thomas Hawk ever since I knew him, and he never corrected me. Like, so after like a year and a half, he corrected me, and I said, no, the time for me to change how I call you has passed. You should have said something earlier.
Right.
So
that's Hawk.
Walter Clayton, I think thinks that Thomas is Tony Hawk's son. So yeah, that's interesting. But he's playing so well, and really the way that he and Condon have been playing together have been really, really cool to watch. But kind of coming into his own on Saturday or on Tuesday night, and then you mentioned Denzel Aberdeen. We talk about the big three, the 3 guards that Florida has, and Denzel's done an exceptional job of getting in and really, not making you think about, oh man, Walt's not playing tonight, or oh man, Elijah's out again. I thought Florida had a small rotation, but it's proving that, hey, there's some guys that when called upon are ready to answer that call.
Yeah, John on the YouTube live says Houck is a beast. I think he was trying. It says how, but I think he was trying to say Houck. And you're right. YouTube question line brought to you by Quality Plumbing. Yes, John, Houck is a beast. So let's do the elephant in the room, Nick. Before I let you go, let's talk about Will Harris. What do you know? And I don't want you to say too much. I mean, I know you have to be mindful, but is this, I guess, let's maybe dispel the rumor to give give credit to Billy Napier and his ability to manage his staff. Obviously, they added Vinny Sunseri, and you can give me the linebacker coaches. I can't remember the linebacker coach that they hired as well, that came in. But is this just the way things go in coaching, that guys come, guys leave? Or have you heard anything else that you could shed light on?
Yeah, it's I think it's unfortunate. It's not, there's just a bad headline for Florida. Will Harris, obviously one of the fan favorites, in terms of the coaching staff. I think he did a really good job with recruiting. I think this freshman class of Florida defensive backs is exceptional, and going to be a huge piece of this program moving forward. And you'll have a bunch of guys that can play this year. So It's not good to lose Will Harris. I think you should move pretty quickly, and it doesn't need to be a name. I don't know that there's big secondary coaching names that people are gonna be like, oh, that's great, that are realistic to get. But I think if you can get somebody that gets you back down into South Florida, there's not a ton of people from my neck of the woods, Lauren, on the roster, and we make some pretty good football players down there in Broward County and Dade County. Getting somebody who, like a Rod Chance, who's over at Oregon State. He was on Mario's staff. He's from Miami. Rod has played and coached in Miami. That gets you back in the homes. And then I wonder if a coach who was on Mario's staff at Oregon but wasn't brought down to Miami, I wonder how much he would enjoy competing against Mario and those guys in recruiting. There's a bunch of guys I think that fans might not know, kind of like a Rod, that I think would be really good hires once you saw how they worked and how good they can be in recruiting. And NIL has kind of changed recruiting, but listen, you still have to get into the living room. You still have to talk to mom, dad, uncle, aunt, brother, sister, find out who the decision maker is, and still build those relationships. So losing Will Harris, I think, is not good. The timing's not good. I don't know that the timing ever would have been good to lose Will Harris, but yeah, I think Billy will find something out. I remember we weren't super excited when we got Will, and he's a West Coast guy. He's not going to be able to recruit. He spent 1 year at a school in Georgia, and it was a small school. So I think that Billy's done a good job of identifying talent like Will. I think there was probably a little bit of hurt feelings when you get Vinny Sunseri and he gets a co-DC title. Why? And I get it. I get that thought. He wasn't coming like from Alabama, where you had to, hey, we'll sweeten the pot with this title. He was coming from Jacksonville State. Hey, do you want to not be in Jacksonville State anymore and want to come to Florida? Yes. What's my title? Janitor. Cool. Come on, come in. I'm coming. Get me out of here.
No, I mean, I think that when you look at it, like I said, as a whole, it's very quick and easy to say, well, okay, this person is in a place, but it's I think like I said, we continue to move on, and we'll see how it shakes out. But Nick, I appreciate you joining me. I know you had a lot going on, but definitely appreciate you coming on, giving us some insights, and we'll have you on again, obviously, for sure. But really appreciate you coming on, and have a good weekend. Enjoy this sports weekend.
Thanks, Lauren. Have a good one.
All right, thank you. Peachland Dentistry, JC, and the QB Weekend Picks. Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and the surrounding area. And to finish up, This Day in Sports, brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. This Day in Sports, in 1995, the Houston Rockets traded Clyde Drexler from the Portland Trail Blazers to the Houston Rockets, and eventually helped lead the Houston Rockets to the 1995 NBA title. So This Day in Sports, brought to you by Campus